Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our RISMedia broker webinar series. We're excited to have you all here. As you're coming on to the go-to webinar, I just want to give everybody a minute to come on live and say thank you for being here. As you come on to the webinar, there's a couple of things I want you to be aware of. If you go into where it says questions and go to the questions portal on your go-to webinar screen, just go in and type it, just say hello and where you're from. I think it'd be fun for everybody to see who's on the call and where you're all from. And so go ahead and put that in there. And then when we have a time for questions as we go through our presenters today, that's where you'll be able to use that and pull up and ask questions, and I'll do my best to allow everybody to see your questions. I want to say thank you to our sponsor. We always have great partners with RISMedia, and one of our great partners today is Homes.com. And Homes.com does a phenomenal job with our brokers and agents alike at putting the consumer in front of the right people at the moment they're closest to the buying decision. Okay, are you seeing my screen okay, folks? Okay, I want to make sure that you're seeing the right screen. You should see how to keep your eye on the prize and increase your listings and productivity. Can one of my panelists tell me that's what you're seeing on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, just want to make sure. My team is in here saying you might be on the wrong screen, so I want to make sure we're in the right place. Just as a warm introduction, my name is Burl Workman. I'm the CEO of Workman Success Systems. We specialize in helping individual agents and brokers alike develop seven-figure teams. We're a speaking and coaching company that really gets narrowly focused on how to create leverage in your business and in your life. And when I think about and talk about leverage, one of the things that comes to my mind is how do we utilize technology, and how do we utilize technology to really make a difference in our business and our life. Many years ago, I was introduced to the greatest domain in all of real estate, and I wish I would have been the one that owned it. It's homes.com. When you think about when people are getting ready to search for a house, how often did they think of just going to looking for homes on the internet? When you type in homes.com, you come to one of the most robust real estate portals that's ever been created, with resources and systems not only for the consumer to have a great experience searching for homes, but connecting those consumers with real estate agents. And homes.com is one of our great sponsors and partners at RISMedia. Joe Sesso, who's the Executive Director of Sales and Marketing, is with us. Joe's an author. He has helped so many people understand their internet marketing strategy. I'd say over 35 or 40,000 agents across the country on how to sell and build more real estate. Joe, thank you so much for being here, and we appreciate all that homes.com is doing for our industry.
Hey, thanks for having me, Burl. You know, a lot going on since we last talked. It's been a while, but you know, like you mentioned about the about authoring a book, Secrets of Top Selling Agents. We did hit #1 on Amazon, which is awesome. In the real estate category, John Featherston wrote the forward for that. We've since won 3 different book awards, so it's really we've really been blessed with that. It's been pretty awesome. That is available on Amazon. But you know, bigger news is what's been going on with Homes.com, because just in the last 45 days, we have been acquired by the CoStar Group. And the CoStar Group owns companies like LoopNet, 10X, Apartments.com, HomeSnap, and now Homes.com, among many other companies, all real estate related. So we're kind of still in the getting to know you phase here with HomeSnap and CoStar. So not a whole lot to say of what's coming down the pipe, but what I can say is that look for a deep integration between HomeSnap and Homes.com in the coming months, and I can't wait to share that with you as that develops more. But what I'm here to talk about today is pretty much what you guys are here to talk about: getting more listings, getting more exposure, being more productive for the firm. And that's what City Sponsor is all about. City Sponsor from Homes.com gives agents the opportunity to get more exposure in their favorite cities. Now, we know that today's market is incredibly hot, so hot so that every day, sales records are being broken, comps are being shattered. And if you're not on top of the market, you're going to be not perceived as an expert. So really, the two things are obviously industry knowledge, which nobody does better than realtors. And second of all is exposure. How do I differentiate myself from my competitors? So with City Sponsor, the first thing is it's sold by city. So whether I'm searching by a zip code in that city, a neighborhood in that city, or the city itself, you will show up at the top of the page, as you can see on that computer screen on the right, the top of the page, and with your ad in City Sponsor. You're sponsoring the entire city. So search by zip code, neighborhood, or city. The cool thing about this is that you're on every subsequent page thereafter. So I flip through 6, 7 pages in the same city. That ad is being seen on the top of every page. So the second feature I want to point out is what you're showing right here, is that you can customize your ad. So if you have listings, great. You can, up to 6 listings can be shown, which is a great way to generate buyer leads. Sellers today want to know, what are you doing differently than the other agent? If I can show a seller that, hey, if you list with me, I'll have you 1 click away from Google, top of the page, on every page in this city on homes.com, that's a great way to stand out. But if you go back one, Verl, I want to show you, because a lot of agents today don't have listings because inventory is so tight. So you can actually, even if you don't have any listings, if you can see the woman there, she's got the little ad that's kind of sticking out there. She doesn't have any listings. But what you can do, what homes.com enables you to do, is have a customized tagline. So for example, if I want more seller leads, I'll say something like, list your home here, click for details. They click, they go to a landing page, they fill out the form, you just generated a seller lead. So you can customize your leads for buyer leads or seller leads. The great thing about it is you're on every page in that city. And here's the last benefit feature I want to talk about is you can have exclusivity in your favorite cities, which means I can own 100% of the inventory and essentially block my competition from getting in there. So I can have the entire spot to myself and be seen more times and get maximum exposure in that city. Here's the best part. We're offering a special for our attendees today for this webinar. And the special is, if you can go to the next slide, bro, up to 50% off, city sponsor. If you want more information, all you have to do is text the word leads, L-E-A-D-S, leads, to 484848. Follow the prompts. And what will happen is we'll contact you today. We'll look up your cities for you. We'll look up the inventory. We'll get you the pricing. Best of all, we're going to maximize the discounts that's available to you. So 484848 and text the word leads. And that's what's going on, bro.
Thanks, Joe, and I appreciate your, I love your energy and enthusiasm. We need to do a webinar where we just go through best practices and how people are converting all the leads that you generate into real sales, because there's a lot of that going on in the marketplace. And congratulations on the success of your book. It's a phenomenal book, and congratulations on the new acquisition. Talk about creating an unfair competitive advantage when you have all those great companies come together. It puts your agents and your brokers in a position to compete, and that's what they need today. So congratulations on all the things that are going on in your business and life.
Thanks, bro.
I'm excited today. We've got, we go through a lot of interviews and we talk to a lot of experts on a lot of different topics. But every once in a while, you get involved with some people that are true givers and that really have a sincere desire to make a difference in the lives of the people they serve. And that's exactly who Shai is. Shai Bundy is with John L. Scott Real Estate. She's an office leader, which would be the same as a broker manager or an office leader. She started working with John L. Scott, literally stuffing envelopes, and she now runs an entire office, a very successful office. After graduating from the University of Washington and then buying her first house, she became a broker in 2000. And so she's been in the business a long time. And I love the story of people who, I don't know about you, but how many of you got into real estate because of your experience with somebody in real estate, either good or bad? And so Shai's a great example of going through buying a house and loving the business and then finding a way to help other people. She's most passionate, I've seen her in action, really helping their brokers and agents with their personal and professional growth. And a lot of things that she'll share with on, kind of taking your business to the next level and really growing your inventory is figuring out what's important to those individuals and helping them get what's important to them as opposed to what's important to you. Shai, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and insight and for making such a difference in the lives of the agents you serve at John L. Scott.
Well, thank you so much, Verl, and thank you, Joe, for this opportunity. I'm so happy to be here.
So let's have a little bit of fun and let's kind of get into it. When you bring your brokers in and you want to develop them and you want to help them list more, give me your process. Let's just lay it out.
So process, I think everybody jumps into like lead generation, and I think you need to take a step back and you need to talk about and be clear about your goals and your why, because let's just be honest, this is not an easy game to play. So if you're clear on your goals and you're clear on your why, every single day you're going to be able to give it to your best. And I think when it comes down to your goals and your why, you have to ask yourself the question, if I accomplish my goals, who in my life will be impacted? Because most of us will work harder for others, our children, our spouses, our families. And I think that's a really powerful place to start. I think you need to see what you did the previous year and what's working for you. Whatever's working, do more of it. Maximize what you're doing. And then lastly, do you have a plan for your personal and professional growth? So do you have a schedule? Do you have a morning routine? I am a huge believer in affirmations. I'm a huge believer in having a morning routine. It sets the tone of your day, and you can make your day whatever you want. So before you get into the actual lead gen aspect, you have to have a really good, strong foundation. So that's step one in my book.
So can I ask a couple questions on this? Let me ask you a couple of questions on the big why, because there's a difference between what they tell you their why is and what their real why is. How do you get to the real underlying core motivating value? Because a lot of people say, oh, it's my family, I want to, but they're not specific enough. How do you dig deeper to find out and to get people to identify that real why and be honest with you in their process?
That's a great question. And I don't think it happens overnight. I think it's an ongoing conversation of writing out, everybody I think works a little different, but having your annual goals, but then maybe a 30 or 90-day plan. But I'm a huge believer in a 5 or 10-year letter. And if you accomplished everything you want to accomplish and you had a magic wand in 10 years, what would your life look like? And I think going through that process with people really helps them gain clarity on why it's so important. And then the possibilities are endless. If money was no option, where would you be in 10 years? And that process, like I said, it doesn't happen overnight, but with that process, they gain clarity.
You made me think of an example, Shai, if you don't mind me sharing it. I was in Arizona and I had a lady come up to me after a seminar. It's like, I want to get a coach. And I said, well, why? She said, I want to make more money. I said, why? She says, because, I want my family to just be more secure. And I said, yeah, I'm not buying it. Why do you really want to make more money? And she thought about it for a minute. She thought about it. And then she came back and said, my husband's the diving teacher at U of A. And I think he's killing himself by working outside all summer in 118-degree weather. And I want him to be able to retire and not have to work outside. And for me, that was real. That was like a real why. When you do something for someone else instead of yourself, you're more willing to do the hard things. So I love in your process that you're starting on helping them identify what that is to them. And I'm aligned with you in our core values and how you think about that. So thank you for sharing that. And so isn't it interesting, everybody, that when we're talking about getting new listings, Shai says it doesn't matter if you don't know why you're doing it. So let's start with that. So thank you for that. I totally agree. Now let's talk about how.
Now let's talk about how. So lead generation ideas, I mean, they're endless. And I think what's most important is you have to identify what pillars of business you want to go after, and you have to have a plan and a strategy. I think a lot of us have, seen brokers and they say, oh, I sent that mailer, but it didn't work. And it just doesn't work that way. So what I did at the beginning of 2021 in an extremely low inventory market is I just racked my brain and came up with a list of all different ways to get listings. So today we're going to focus on 3. We're going to focus on your sphere of influence and your database, leveraging your listings, and off-market opportunities. And I believe that when you identify how you want to generate your business, you should go deeper, not wider. So make your pillar of business from start to finish. You have a plan, you have a strategy. It's not one and done. That just doesn't work. So the next slide, please.
Okay. And so I don't have any more slides on yours. Let me see.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Well, then I can just talk to you first.
Let's just talk about these.
Absolutely. Okay, so when it comes to your database, we oftentimes hear, I don't want to bother the people in my life. And just ask yourself, with your database, do they know your message? Do they know what your thoughts and beliefs are when it comes to the market? Because if they don't, they're listening to someone else. So it's very important that they think of you as the expert in the business. When it comes to marketing, have a plan, and twice a year just doesn't cut it, because frequency creates familiarity. And the more often they see your name and they see your face, when they hear of someone talking about real estate, they're going to think of you. So we try to have our brokers somehow touch their database a minimum of 3 times a month. You should have some electronic mailers going to them. You should be direct mail. You should be calling them. You should be sending them equity updates. Equity updates are the value of your home. Now, John L. Scott has a really great AVM site that we can automatically send people, and it's fabulous. But the home values have risen so much lately that send them a formal CMA. That matters. It's their biggest asset. When it comes to leveraging your listings, how can you take this one listing and make more business from it? You can have neighborhood invites. You can do virtual open houses as soon as it goes live. You are the first person showing everyone this property. So have a goal. Again, don't just go out and do it. Our goal is to generate 5 deals for every listing.
So Shai, I want to go back for just a second because, and I'm sorry to have the deck got updated, didn't get updated on my calendar. So they're going to bring that back up for me here in just a second. I'm going to go back to your sphere of influence a minute because you talked about something that I thought was really important. And I think that we ought to spend a minute just expanding on that. I don't know how often do your agents or brokers come to you and they're upset because one of their friends or family members or sphere of influence did a real estate deal with somebody else. And they're upset because they didn't use them. But yet they don't want to reach out and let them know they're in business because they think it's sleazy to reach out to people and say, I'm still in real estate, who do you know? And so how do you teach them to message to that database in a way that doesn't come across as the only reason I'm calling you is because I want something from you? Because there's got to be I know that we're aligned in the way we think about this, but tell me some of the things that you would suggest that they say and do.
So 2 things. I'm going to start with, I have a firm belief that the speed of the leader determines the pace of the pack. So in our office, we have talked about database for so many years. From day one that you start, I will tell you it's the most important thing you can do. And you need to make your message clear. So I think having that ongoing message and conversation is most important. And if people are resistant, we have to find out why. So if you're worried that you're going to be bothering your database, you're not coming from the right place. You need to come from a place of service. You need to be a resource, and you have to believe in what you're offering the people. Once you believe that, and you know, in your heart, you know that your message is the best message, that all goes out the window. So I think really getting to the core reason why the broker's feeling uneasy about reaching out to their database.
You know, I was thinking about homes.com and what Joe was saying about having exclusivity in marketplaces and being able to stay at the front of your mind and being able to pull highlighted listings up. Well, how many of your people in your sphere want that same information? And what if you just use the tools and resources at your fingertips when you made your calls to say, you know, I pulled your neighborhood up and I didn't know if you knew that there were 4 properties currently listed. A lot of people think things are selling faster than they are. And I don't know if one of the things we're messaging to our agents right now is that almost all the way across the country, there's 14% more inventory today than there was 30 days ago. And so we're starting to see a shift in the market. People want to know that kind of information. So if you show up giving value, is what I'm hearing you say, Shai, instead of trying to sell them something, then that puts you at the front of their mind as a real estate expert. So when that life event occurs, they think of you first. And that's all we're trying to do. We're not trying to get them to sell something or buy something.
Yes. And I always tell people, if you have a financial planner, if you have investments, you're receiving information every quarter on the value of your investments. So your home is no different.
I'd like to say,
Girl, you brought up a good point. I got a question. So yeah, I want to throw this out. So you mentioned that, and I'm going to throw this out for Anthony and Shai and Verl, you too. You mentioned that inventory is up 14% month over month, and that's an interesting stat. Do you think it's that there's more inventory in the market just because there's more listings coming up, or do you think that buyers are sellers are pushing the boundaries to see, because we were seeing offers 50,000, 100,000 over the asking price. These numbers are being blown up. Do you think people just kind of say, hey, let's just keep going to see how far we can go before market pushes back a little bit? Or what do you think? What are you seeing?
I can take that question. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay now. We connected a new microphone. But there's definitely more sellers listing, and there's two reasons. One, the vaccine had an impact. Two, as more sellers list because now more sellers feel secure about where am I going to go. Whereas 4 or 5 months ago, sellers are like, yeah, I want to sell, but where am I going to go? And that's why we're seeing the market break open, especially I'm up here. I mean, we're serving New England. We also serve South Florida. We noticed a change starting about 6 weeks ago in up here. South Florida, we noticed about 3 weeks ago, but especially in the last week and a half, we see a big difference. And to Shai's point, one thing she keeps saying, and she's 1,000% right, and I always say it in my words, is educate. So she says, your financial planner goes over your investments quarterly. You know, why not give people this information? I always talk about leading with education. You know, you're not calling someone, hi, are you buying or selling? Are you looking to buy or sell? Instead, you're educating them on things. People love to learn. We are so lucky to be in a business that people always want to hear about. If you're a plumber, no one is dying to hear about what kind of pipes are in the house. If you're an electrician, no one gives a damn what kind of Romex wiring it is. But when you're in real estate, every cookout you go to, every family party you go to, people say to Shai and I, hey, how's the market? People say to Verl, how's the market? People say to Joe, a place like homes.com, with all the information and data they have, people say to Joe, how's the market? No one asks those questions to other professions. We're lucky, but not enough of us use that to our advantage.
I think that's a great, that's kind of just a great way of describing the serve regardless of opportunity. So Shai, you talk about the database and then leverage your listings to create more opportunities off every listing. If you don't, share with me how you're dealing with what you're doing with off-market properties. Are you back seeing my slides again?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
But that's okay. It'll come up. As far as we've been in an extremely low inventory market as the rest of the country. This is the first year in my career I seen a $250,000 non-refundable earnest money. So it was crazy in our area, especially, you know, in April and May. And so our brokers had to get creative. And what we try to do is, like, we want to offer the buffet and give them as many ideas as possible and help them execute. So whether they're sending to a community and I have a buyer letter, or sending the letter that says, hey, Mr. and Miss Neighbor, this property just had 13 offers. That means there's 12 more buyers looking for a home just like yours. So I think with off market, you have to be very specific of what your goal is and the messaging around it. During COVID, it was an ideal time because there was a lot of people that sellers did not want people walking through their home. So it was ideal and an ideal opportunity to do an off-market transaction.
So what I'm hearing is that off-market properties is basically creating inventory when you don't have any, and it's finding ways to message to the marketplace different terms or different dialogues that create opportunities for people to think about or consider making a move. So I like the idea of off-market properties. When you brought that up, what went to my mind quickly was, you know, goes back to your first one of your sphere of influence and database. When you have a buyer, everybody's going to the same database of MLS properties to find houses that are already on the market. But what if you just worked your own database and you looked for people that were in your database that had homes similar to what your buyer wanted and called them up and said, hey, I just wonder if you want to move. Like, there's no way you can be hurt with that. Like, there's no downside. They're already not using you.
Absolutely. And a piece of off market that I'm a big believer in is non-owner occupied. So properties that are rental properties. In our area, we've had an eviction moratorium. And so there's a lot of landlords that are wanting to get out of being a landlord. And there's a trifecta of events with the eviction moratorium and capital gains potentially going up and peak pricing. And again, we have to find these people and make sure they know a clear message about what's going on and what their opportunities are.
You know, that's so true. And there's a lot of people that during the pandemic, they didn't have the financial ability to not collect rent. And so they still have to pay their mortgages. And so it's a really big catch-22 that our landlords are in. And there's a lot of people that are one or two door owners that can maximize the outcome of selling their property today. So I love the idea of looking for absentee owners, working your off-market properties, working your database, and leveraging your listings. And I think if we just, what I think is cool about your message today, Shai, is that success isn't like this magical or mysterious secret pill, but it's a higher level of execution and going deeper on the things everybody knows they should do, but they don't.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I really love the message, and thank you. And I hope you'll stay with us as we introduce Anthony, because I know people are going to have questions for you, and you obviously have some fans in your offices that are going in the questions and telling us how great you are. So thank you for sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're going to jump in, and let me introduce to you Anthony LaMacchia. Anthony, welcome to the call. Everybody got to hear from you a moment ago, and your energy and excitement and enthusiasm. Anthony's the broker owner of and the CEO of LaMacchia Real Estate and Property Management and Development and Real Training and Systems. And so this is a busy entrepreneur who loves making a difference. He practices what he preaches, and then he shares with other people how to do and duplicate the successes he's had. And I love every time I talk to him, I'm energized, and it levels me up, Anthony. So I appreciate your energy and sharing with us today. You spend a lot of his time, running different companies and training agents and running national coaching programs through strategic planning and planning for their future. He's considered an industry expert. He's done hundreds of TV appearances and been on local news, a lot of speaking engagements and industry national conferences, things like that, not including NAR, Zillow conferences, Inman summits, and even more. He's passionate about providing agents. All the employees.
That's good.
I want to just keep going. We could go for, I have pages here.
We're good. Thank you so much for the nice introduction. I'm thrilled and honored to be here with you, Burl. Burl, I'll tell you, I didn't mention it when we had our prep call last week, but I used to read articles that you put out 15, 18 years ago when I started in the business, and I looked up to you a ton. So to be on here with you is exciting, and to be on with Shai and Joe is exciting as well. So I'm happy to be here. What I'd like to talk about, the name of this webinar is Keeping Your Eye on the Prize. And what I want to get into, Shai did a great job talking about lead generation. And I agree literally with everything she said with respect to lead generation. But what I want to really get into is, okay, once you obtain that lead, how do you not blow it? How do you keep your eye on the prize and not completely lose it? And I want to tell you that I started figuring this out in March of 2018. And then when the pandemic hit last year, it became so clear that realtors were blowing it that I said, I need to make an entire training out of this. And I've been talking about it a lot on Crush It in Real Estate and different forums that I speak on, because I've realized that us realtors are partly the problem. RISMedia was nice enough to allow me to write an article, an op-ed about a month ago or 6 weeks ago. And I said in the article, us realtors are part of the problem. And I mean that. And I don't mean to sound mean, but sorry, I'm not sorry. When a seller calls you and says, hi, I'd like to sell my home and I'd like to buy a new one, and you literally do this. Hi, oh, you live on 123 Main Street? Oh my God, I just had a listing over there, put it on Saturday morning at 10, sold it by 11. Hey, oh, and you want to move where? Oh, I just had 2 listings over there, sold them right away. The market's completely crazy. Everything is just nuts. You are not giving people any comfort when you talk that way at all. You're scaring the life out of these, what I call sell buys. You're making them so that they're saying, wait a minute, you sold the house in an hour, you sold the house. The other thing agents do, I got 35 offers, we sold it 152 million over asking. Telling a seller how fast you sold a home was cool 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I had a full-page newspaper ad in the back of our local paper, 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago when I was out selling. And we used to put a banner next to all the homes we sold. And we'd say, sold in 30 days, sold in 40 days, sold in 10 days. Now you say, sold in 30 days, the sellers are like, what the hell did you do for the other 29? So us realtors have to adapt to the market we're in, and we don't do a good enough job at that. We have to recognize that the biggest fear out of a seller is, where am I going to go? So telling them how fast you're selling everything you touch doesn't help you. What you need to do is talk to them about how you will protect them. You will make sure that they do not end up homeless. You will do that by providing contingencies. You'll be putting contingencies in the contract or disclosures in the MLS or things like that. When you're on that lead call, it is totally okay to say to a seller, hey, I'm sure you might be a little bit concerned about where you're going to buy and maybe how you're going to time it all so that your buying and selling can happen at the same time. They are immediately going to say to you, yeah, actually, I'm very concerned about it. Okay, listen, don't worry. We do this all the time. I do this every day. There's a couple of different paths we can go down. We can go down the path of listing your home and getting everything totally ready so that when you list it, you'll be able to, you can list your home and put disclosures out to totally protect yourself, or you can get everything totally ready, get pre-approved, get your pictures done, your floor plans done, get the landscaping done, get the house totally ready to list, so that when you do find the home you want, you can say to that listing agent, hey, I've got a buyer here who's completely and totally ready. As soon as your seller accepts, within 24 hours, we're going to list. We're going to list the property at $500,000. Here's the comps in the neighborhood. I just want to show you that if we listed at 5, we're going to sell right away. So my buyer may be subject to, but they're a very strong buyer. That gives sellers comfort. That makes sellers feel like they are willing to take a step forward and meet with an agent. And when we came out with this training months back, I realized how bad of a problem this was, because within 7 days of putting it out, I had dozens of people reaching out to me saying, hey, you know what? I got a listing appointment from a seller that I literally wasn't able to get the listing, these people to even meet with me, never mind list with me, but I watched your training and I figured it out. All I talk about in the training, I'm telling you right here, is understanding the client's fear and not adding to that fear and exacerbating that fear, making them feel comfortable. When you meet with them, showing examples of disclosures you will use, showing examples of contingencies you can put in the contract so that they feel protected and they don't worry about getting homeless. Because that, my friends, is the area that many realtors are blowing it. And that's why we have so little inventory. Obviously, the virus and all those other things contribute to it, but seller fear is the biggest reason our inventory is as low as it is in the last 6 months. It's because of that. Fortunately, as Pearl mentioned, in the last 2 weeks, inventory is coming up a good amount, the last 2 or 3 weeks. Is it enough to satisfy all the buyer demand? Not even close. You still have to know how to talk to these sell buys and make them feel comfortable.
You know, Anthony, I was thinking about what, as you're talking through that, and you give a lot of sage advice there on why inventory is the way that it is. I think that there's plenty of inventory, you just don't have it. And so there's a lot of houses selling, and if none of them are yours, you need to change your behavior and go get the listings, because other people are working and getting the listings and they're selling fast. So it doesn't feel like there's a lot of inventory. There's more houses selling this month than a year ago at the same time. And so it's not that there isn't houses selling, it's just that the inventory isn't yours. And so what are you teaching your agents and your clients to do to get it? I love the "can you close the deal?" question mark.
Well, the biggest thing we're teaching agents to do is to work the off-market listings and to share them. So fortunately, we have a company where when people sign up listings, they're sending them in, they're going into our database. Our database is trying to match up our seller leads with our buyer leads. But we've only had a sophisticated system like that for the last 18 months. Before that, the listings got entered on an Excel sheet. They got emailed out every day to the agents, so the agents could see the new inventory that was coming up. And our agents have been extremely diligent about stocking that list every single week when it comes out at 4 o'clock and seeing what's coming up. And I'll tell you something, they're not always able to find exactly what their buyer's looking for, but when they have that list and they can actually show that to a buyer and say, look at this list, do you know how many more buyers you convert? Do you know how many more buyers you convert when you're showing them access to your off-market system, showing them a list this long of what is coming up on the market? The buyers love it. And that just comes down to you working, to you putting in the effort. And that's something that frankly is missing. You mentioned, Pearl, before I started, many people know what they should be doing every day, but they're not actually doing it. And it's important that you take action. This is a market that requires experts again. Okay, 2007 to 2011 or 12, you needed to be an expert to do well. 2012 to 2019, you got buyer leads and you were decent at conversion, or you listed a home, you could sell homes. Now we're back in a complicated market, and it's important to be an expert, and it's important to be on offense. Just like Shai talked about her broker, Lennox. I was with him last week in Colorado, and we were talking about these very things. You know, adding to your database, just like she said, getting in touch with people, staying in touch with people, providing them values of their property. And as I mentioned when Joe invited me to jump in 15 minutes ago, you don't show up at a cookout as a plumber and people say, hey, how's all the pipe work going? But when you're in real estate, they always ask how the market's going. And it's our job to play into that and give them what they want and make them feel good. I actually, go ahead.
No, I just think it's interesting that you're so aligned in the way you're thinking about how we're communicating with the people that we're talking to. And when you were going through the level of expertise in real estate, when you're in a complex market, I think it's a great weeding out process, because when you don't know how to sell your services or the value that you bring to a transaction, all you do is discount price. And so we end up giving away more and working harder for lower fees because we don't know how to sell the services that we offer. And so you're both talking about becoming experts and actually being true trusted advisors in the transaction instead of someone who just opens doors.
100% right. You know, I agree with that, my friend. I did prepare our document, and we made a web page, and I apologize, I can't think of it off the top of my head. I don't know if it's on the next slide. If it's not, I'm just going to ask someone to get me the web address so that I can mention it, because I had told you how we created this document to, oh, do you have it on your site? That'd be great.
Put it on the screen, and we'll make sure that the download is there on Eye on the Prize. And so workmansuccess.com/Eye on the Prize, we'll make sure they get that.
Awesome. We had sent that to you last week. And what that was, Burl, was a simple PDF, a simple document that talked to sellers about those two roads. You want to go down the road of listing and using contingencies and disclosures, or do you want to go down the road of getting everything completely ready to list, but stopping just short until you find what you want? And literally making that document and showing that to sellers has made things easier.
And that's the talking about which road they want to go down.
Which road they want to go down. Do they want to go down the road of listing or getting totally ready to list, but not quite listing until they find what they want? And the problem is sellers don't realize that's an option, and it goes right back to what Shai was talking about. Educate them. How are sellers going to know how to deal with this market when we haven't seen a tight inventory market? I mean, granted, it's been getting tighter and tighter and tighter, but up until 4 years ago, we hadn't seen that since 02. Right? 03. So how are they going to know if we don't tell them? It's our job to educate them.
Yeah, 100%. So give me some one-liners, some of the one-liners that you'll use in that process.
Well, you know, it comes down to when you're talking to the seller. When you're on the phone with the seller, you should be talking to the seller about the things that they are concerned about. Number one thing that a seller wants is the most money. The number two thing, which is a very close to right now, is their timing. They're concerned about their timing. So when we talk about one-liners or scripts or things that you should tell them, just what I mentioned before. Oh, okay, you want to sell, and where do you want to move to? Oh, wonderful. Do you have a time frame in mind? Nowadays, well, we got to find the right house. I understand you're probably a bit concerned about finding the right home in time and matching up those dates so that you can pull it all off correctly. Is that a concern of yours? Oh, it is. Okay. No problem. Listen, we do this every single day. I do it and my company does it. We're experts at helping people move from one home to the other. We're going to protect you. We're going to make sure that you don't end up homeless. We're going to make sure that we pull this off in such a way that you don't have to move twice. Unless, of course, that's something that you want to do. But if you don't, we're going to do everything we can. We're going to use certain strategies to make sure that doesn't happen. When they hear that, their blood pressure is literally going, because they're concerned. And too many realtors forget the fact that leads don't call. A seller lead doesn't call and go, hi, I'm looking to sell, but I'm a little bit concerned about this, this, and that. And unless you make me feel good, I will not hire you. That's not how they talk. It just isn't how they talk. They don't express it, so we're not tackling it. You have to know that that's how they feel, and you have to tackle it.
Well, our consumers today are savvy, they're smart, and they want someone to be honest with them and give them some options and tell them what it's really going to be like, and it's going to be a process. And I think that you taking them through a process like really gets it there. I had my son-in-law who's an agent had a buyer come in, and he said, I want to make an offer, but my agent won't make this offer because they say it won't get done. It's not worth their time. Now, how do you respond to that?
Well, to me, that's insanity. And I tell agents, when that happens, when you get a buyer, because let's say that buyer was unrealistic, what better way for that buyer to learn that they are unrealistic than writing the offer, submitting the offer, letting it get denied? There's nothing wrong with that. They're a consumer, they're concerned, they want to make sure they're not overpaying. They lose out on a couple of houses, they start to wake up to reality real fast.
Yeah, well, my son-in-law took the client on, put it under contract, showed him the one house, and was able to close a $450,000 transaction because another agent wasn't willing to write an offer. And it wasn't that it was unrealistic, it was that it needed to be worded differently in order to be effective. And so being an expert and helping your client get what they want by giving the seller what they want, that's how we get deals under contract. And I think that both of you have been just phenomenal at sharing your insight on how people are getting deals done. Anthony, if you had one thing that you would tell your agents or just anybody listening on the call as a broker owner right now, if there was one thing that they could do that would make the biggest impact on growing their inventory, what would you have them focus on?
Growing their inventory. Well, for one, they've got to generate leads. In order to do that, they need to educate people. They need to be in touch with people. And that goes back to what Shai said. That's number one. And then number two, more of the area that I talked about, she talked more lead gen. I talked, hey, when the lead comes in, don't screw it up. Those are the things that you have to do. But you're not going to get more clients. I mean, if you're an agent that's been in this business 4 or 5 years and you've had a lot of buyer clients, you have a listing gold mine in your past clients. Gold mine. But you're not going to get it if you're not in touch with it.
So people are going to buy and sell houses regardless of whether or not they use you. You just have to decide whether or not you're going to be at the front of their mind when that life event occurs that causes them to move. And we don't control it. All we do is control our actions and our activities, is what I'm hearing from both of you.
Yep.
So Shai, let me ask you the same thing. Like, if there was one thing, if you could pick just one magic thing that has consistently worked the best, and you talked about farming and you talked about working your database and off-market properties, man, if I just tactically picked one thing and I got laser focused on it and got better at that one thing, what would that be?
It would definitely be your relationship database. I think that what's going to happen in our industry in the years to come with whether it's iBuyers or discount firms, I mean, I think there's a lot going against full service brokers, and the people in your community and your world that know you and like you and trust you will always come back to you because they see your value, but you need to maximize that opportunity.
So I like that. Joe, I hope you don't mind if I throw you a question. You mind if I throw you one?
Fire away.
All right, Joe, so I want to know what homes.com is doing to put sellers in a better position so that they can have greater opportunities in moving their inventory. And how do we put ourselves in the middle of that seller and the transaction? How do we become the agent of choice when someone's thinking about putting their house on the market using homes.com as a resource?
Yeah, so, talking about like the city sponsor, for example, which I talked about in the beginning, one of the things is sellers love exposure. And I know that a lot of agents are probably saying, well, I could sell a house, like Anthony said, like an hour or 2 hours. But the main thing is that, hey, we are breaking a lot of these sales records. And, when you get 35 offers, you got to get exposure on that property. And I think that every advantage that an agent can have in promoting exposure for that property is really important. So what homes.com is doing is, with that city sponsor, it's always going to be at the top right of the page in the main listing. So it's not like it's an ad on top of it. It's like right in the middle. So you're looking at listings, and in many cases, these are listings because the agent, we post up to 6 of the agent's listings in there. But like I said, if the agents don't have listings, they can have a call to action, generate seller leads. Sellers want to be right, they want to have the maximum exposure on that. So we're putting the agents in that opportunity to own the entire city, to generate seller leads or to promote their listings. But the other thing is, it's not just a set it and forget it thing. Agents can really be proactive here, because even if they have the city sponsor spot, this could be leverage on a listing presentation. You know, when they're on a listing presentation, they're saying, well, let me show you what I'm going to do, especially if they have that, if they own the city that property is going to be in. If they have that city, they say, if you list with me today, by tomorrow, we're one click away from Google on the top of the page of homes.com in this city. Whether somebody searches by zip codes or the neighborhood or the city, you're going to show up at the top and you'll be on every single page. So that's really what we're doing to maximize the exposure for the sellers, but also put the agents, like you said, bro, right in the middle of that transaction.
All right, so I like that. I'm curious, and this is just a Verl question because you piqued my curiosity. How often do you think sellers are going on websites like homes.com before they ever select an agent to see who's marketing and what their property is going to look like when it's listed?
That's always interesting. So we always say that we look at the stats. We got 90 to 95% of people begin their search online, and about 85% of it is at Google. So they're typing in something like homes for sale in any given city. When they do that, then you see the portals that come up, the different agents that come up, and so they click on one. So they'll find them. So we know that you got companies out there that spend a lot of money on their marketing, and now that we have CoStar behind it, we're going to see a lot. People are going to be hearing a lot about homes.com if they haven't heard about them already, because of the fact that we have a huge company behind us now. Whereas before we were privately held. But the other thing is this: we actually have more MLS data feeds than Zillow. So when you think about that, people go in front of a house, they look it up online. Oh, it's not on here. Oh, I can't find it on this web. Let me go. They click on homes.com and boom, there it is. And what happens when they see that, they say, wait a minute, if this house wasn't on that site, then what other houses am I missing out on? And that's how we were traditionally getting a lot of traffic from that, but also we're showing up on page 1 of Google as well. So yeah, so they're beginning their search. And if they have a pleasant experience on a site, they stay there until they select an agent that they really like, or if they already have an agent. In this case, if they already have an agent, yeah, then the agent can direct them to their own website, or still a site like homes.com as well.
So I appreciate that. So Anthony, in the marketing that you've done with your companies, in the property management or in some of the other areas, do you have a strategy to turn your absentee owners or your property managers or even your tenants into buyers and sellers?
Well, and I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but our overarching strategy is just in line with what Shai said. We're educating people. So in our tenants and the properties that we manage, we're educating them on buying. Our past buyers, we're educating them on the value of their home, on what it would take to move up and buy another home. No matter what segment it is, brokerage is obviously by far and away our biggest business. But no matter who we're targeting, we're always trying to educate them. And there's so much content out there. I mean, you mentioned homes.com. Joe's done a great job explaining it. But if Joe started talking now about all the things that homes.com has, he could still be talking in 4 hours, right? Why? Because that information is what consumers want, and it's your job as the realtor to guide them there. The more you educate them, the more that you'll draw them to you. So those are the kinds of things that we're always doing. I do a lot by video. I mentioned my Question in Real Estate page on Facebook, where I'm always giving out realtor tips and things like that. But once a month, I get on video on our LaMacchia Realty Facebook page, and I talk about the market, and I show the statistics. I do that for Mass and New Hampshire once a month. I do that for Florida once a month, because people are dying to consume information about real estate.
That's so true. Okay, Shai, so one last question, and then we'll open it up to everybody that's attending to go in and write your questions in the chat box, and I'll do my best to answer and to ask them all of our panelists. So Shai, what are some of the tools or the resources that John L. Scott makes available to their brokers to help them with that communication of expertise to the marketplace? What are some of the things that come down your pipeline given to the agents and the agents sent out to the marketplace?
I think John L. Scott has really cutting edge technology. We have a site called Buy Side that offers the AVM of a property, and it is a set it and forget it. And we have a few of those with monthly housing updates. So our messaging to our brokers is, if you send a housing update to their area, 2 weeks later they get one for their property, and that's a set it and forget it. But now you have to implement a third. Is that a phone call? Is that a mailer? We're big believers in the birthday campaigns. So I think it's a combination of the broker's involvement, and then being able to utilize John L. Scott's technology.
So what would you say that is the most underused technology, something that is an unbelievable resource that we wish the agents would utilize more of?
You're gonna laugh, but it's their phone. They need to call their database more often. But no, I mean, I think in our office, we really try to do the heavy lifting for the brokers. Brokers don't want to do data entry. They don't want to worry about that. So we have a plan in our office where the office staff can help the brokers. And that has really maximized the adoption of the programs. But, you know, I still talk to veteran agents who have resistance of calling their database, you know, that 3 or 4 times a year. And that's what deepens their relationships.
Right. I always say, Verl, agents need to get back to using their phones for what they were originally intended for. Before you could text, go on the internet, take pictures, take video, just use it for what it was originally made for, and it'll make you more money than anything else. Anything else. I know I don't need to tell you that.
Well, I absolutely agree. I want to stop sharing my screen because I can't see y'all on video when I share it. So I like looking at your faces. Shai, when you're talking about touching the database, the feeling I get is you just need to call and give them a hug. And sometimes people just need a hug, need to know that you care about them. And when you do that, and especially when you do it with, when you come from a place of genuine wanting to serve, then the sales call goes away and you just focus on the relationship. And I found that, and I think that this is something that has been communicated very well from all three of you, is that if you serve regardless of the opportunity, then the opportunities take care of themselves. And when you call with good information and you call with good data and you put them in a position to be the most educated in a transaction, then you're doing your job as a great real estate agent. And I think that's where we have an opportunity to elevate the industry. And I love that you're sharing your thoughts and your passion and your enthusiasm. Your agents in your brokerages and in your coaching company and your clients at homes.com are very lucky to have you in their lives. And I hope they listen in and they lean in and listen to the advice that you share. Joe, there's a private message for you in the questions box. You don't need to answer that in a group, but they called in and there was an issue. Does homes.com work in Canada, Joe?
Yeah, actually, we actually do. We work in Canada, Western Canada. We actually work with RE/MAX of Western Canada, so which has a large portion. We actually do have. If you go on homes.com, you can actually look up listings in Canada. Mostly, again, you'll mostly find most of them in Western Canada.
So thank you for that. So on behalf of RISMedia and Workman Success, I just want to thank everybody for being part of the webinar today. Anthony and Shai, thanks for your great knowledge and wisdom and being so willing to share. It's fun to be around givers in the industry. Joe, you're a phenomenal partner and you're doing a tremendous job outside of what homes.com does. Thank you for your impact on the industry, and I wish you continued success with this new venture. So everybody, on behalf of RISMedia and all of us, thanks for being here. We'll talk to you all in the next RISMedia webinar series. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.